Mick Cronin completely reversed course on his recruiting strategy, and it's worked.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for your support. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Boost and bonuses available daily. Just head over to FanDuel.com. Where we get started today, first, officially, as of here on henceforth, whatever, we are a Big Ten podcast. Big Ten only. And some love for the Pac-12 because of memories. But Big Ten only. That is all we care about. All those rooting interests, no. You cheer on your Big Ten brethren, and you despise them too. All right? We don't like you, Rutgers, our biggest rival outside of our former Pac-12 foes. Okay, jokes aside. All right, where we get started, now that UCLA is an official member of the Big Ten, means got to up the game in recruiting, whether it's football or what we're talking about today, UCLA men's basketball. Mick Cronin has changed the game for UCLA recruiting, as it's all changed in the pay-for-play era that's coming pretty soon, in the NIL era, the transfer portal. Everything has to change, in large in part for UCLA's favor on the men's side in basketball. Now, Mick Cronin, after going heavy freshmen, lots of newcomers, international recruiting, it's completely changed. Remember the staff. You could have more staff members for basketball, right? You could have more staff members. They've changed staff member requirements. They've changed the amount of scholarships you can do. All in recent years, the game is changing, and Mick Cronin has adapted, right? He's adapted. And initially, it was, who's this new guy you can go across the seas and find that can steal a game and develop, right? Well, super talented players are few and far between, right? The Nikola Jokic's of the world, the Victor Wembanyama's, the international players are going to come and dominate the game like Zach Edey did for Purdue for a few years. They don't just dominate in year one, and sometimes take more than year or two or three to develop. And what Mick Cronin learned is, in a dog-eat-dog world in the portal, in conference affiliation and rivalries and money and media rights, UCLA has the muscle to flex to go get the top players from other schools. And they can create their own literal scholarship funded by NIL bucks to get a guy like a Sky Clark. And still, at the last minute, when coaching switches happen and commits change their mind, which happens all the time, you can go get Trent Perry. When the freshman high school recruiting class was Eric Freeney, a guy who I'm not entirely sure how much time he's going to get this year, might have to develop a year or two and wait till all the guys leave after this season. But Mick Cronin emphasized the portal, returned some talent, has a lot of production returning despite losing a Dembona, some seniors, and some guys to the portal or to the pros. UCLA retained the Dylan Andrews and the Sebastian Max and Brandon Williams, who started a lot of games, Stefanovic, while bringing on quite a few teams leading scores, like a Louisville, right? Dominic Harris, who's still finishing up classes at LMU to get over to UCLA, so it's not even official yet, but he's on his way with the commitment. Then you've got the additional add-ons of, right, double entendre there, rotunded. You've got Tyler Bilodeau, who is expected to be a big part. Defensive key add-ons like Daley Jr. from Oklahoma State, who came over from the Cowboys and was a player who could play defensively any position. Kyle III, who comes over from an NCAA tournament team, step up into Power 4 conference play, but he's going to be a significant addition playing for UCLA, right? And Kobe Johnson, who all Mick Cronin did was compare him to the Naismith Defensive Player of the Year, and maybe will be a Defensive Player of the Year in the Big Ten. That's all he was, the National Defense, I don't know if it's Naismith, but the National Defensive Player of the Year award winner, Jalen Clark, who was dominant for UCLA a couple of seasons ago. Now for UCLA, what they need is to continue and find what this means overall. After literally changing a position, replacing Ivo Simovic, and that was the guy who was really in charge of international recruiting, got a job in the NBA. UCLA replaced him, updated some staffers, did different things, still have an international recruiting basis. It looks like what we're still seeing, as much as we're seeing developments in Asia, in Europe, in NBA Africa, and those academies, developing talent, trying to build those nations up in different ways, international recruiting everywhere you can try and find it, from North, South America, all across the globe in different continents. You're still going to see a lot of guys. What they've done is they'll move and they'll come to the U.S., play at a prep academy, and then UCLA can go get like an Adem Bona. Or what they're trying to get, the class of 25, it's seemingly very cooled off, a 4-star kid, and I think Tunde Yesufu, if I've got his name correctly. I'm probably butchering that. That is what UCLA is battling with. They're probably going to stick in their backyard. They can go get Trent Perry, who was committed across town, and still steal him, a McDonald's All-American. They can go to New York, get Brandon Williams, make sure they don't lose a recruiting battle, which, now is housed by Rick Pitino. Keep him here still, keep his interest in Los Angeles, a kid whose home is all the way across the country. And then pluck kids from different backgrounds, bring some back home, bring some kids to, this is an opportunity to play here. The NIL has significantly increased. Mick Cronin, from complaining about it, has now been in shock and awe. He's probably not going to say that, but now he has gone into the portal era while keeping in the backyard developing of talent, and found the day and age of he has certain players he wants and is also going to get the most talented players, right? He's gone from quoting, this is a Mick Cronin quote, the Cincinnati Reds wanted free agents too, but the Dodgers got them. All right. And in Los Angeles, we all love the fact that the Dodgers can go do what they want, the trade deadline and the portal. And that's what the transfer portal is. It's a glorified year in, year out trade deadline in the offseason, right? Except instead of giving something up, you're just giving some kid an opportunity and stealing him from another university, right? It's free agency, feels more crazy like a trade deadline day, if you will, with the craziness where players control as opposed to teams control, even though coaches do kick out players, not for just, not following the rules or grades, but they do say, go get a new home. We'll find you a new home, or go to D2 or go to some other school. That happens too. Mick Cronin, you have to think some of these kids that left had to get sent packing or didn't really like and couldn't handle the Mick Cronin in-your-face style, because he does that. And now this year, if a kid can't handle what it takes to be a Big Ten basketball player, UCLA basketball player, they're going to go to depth. And if that kid doesn't work out, they're going to go to more depth, because 1 through 4, as Cronin's been quoted as saying on other outlets, we're as deep as it gets. I'm probably going to use my philosophy of full court pressing, not just for playing time, which in the back of his mind, he's not going to just say that out loud, but that is really how it works. But he has the depth to do things. Look at Sky Clark, man. That kid can shoot the lights out of the ball. And you got a dude who can shoot better than him. Scorers who aren't going to be asked to do as many things. Defenders who can do many things and be put in the best positions, as opposed to what UCLA had in 23-24 in a dismal final swan song in the Pac-12, where you had guys asked to do things they weren't ready for. From the freshman day and age has, during the COVID eligibility era, where guys get older, more money, they're sticking around, and still have that COVID year to use, we've seen a shift back to the older basketball player. Not the Kentucky run to this championship, although even Kentucky's recent greatest team since the Anthony Davis years was a team that had all their best players stay one more year, right? That was the best team that John Calipari had when it came to the team that stayed the next year with all the talent, super good. Now you have to mix in a good freshman who is ready to contribute right away. Perry, with what Mick Cronin's raved about him, is a great steal at the end of the recruiting cycle prior to signing day. And then now you got to go rate the other team's best players for best fits at university to replace your weaknesses and cause holes in the other. And UCLA can compete dollar-wise, exposure-wise now, and they don't need to go take 30 prospects like they did last year. Now, I wonder where the 25 recruiting class is going to go, because there's a lot of cool recruiting. You go look at different websites. There's a lot of cool, unknown official visits, because there are quite a few players from this year's team that have more years of eligibility. Now, if they all ball out, they're all going to leave and go pro. That's not the case. I think UCLA is going to have at least 6 to 7 leftovers that are very talented from this year's recruiting class to next. But Cronin has changed the game for UCLA in a building year and a big transition year, Pac-12, Big Ten. First full 4 to 5 years done for Mick Cronin, and he's come off a non-NCAA tournament appearance year. This is the future for his legacy, for UCLA's legacy, to dust off the UCLA hasn't done anything in 30 years nonsense. And this is a chance to do so in a new chance with new exposure, the national limelight on them. And UCLA has flexed its muscle in the offseason. It's time to do so during the season. Okay, I'm excited. Now, UCLA football has to prepare for the physicality of the Big Ten. And let's talk about what they're trying to do coming forth into the Big Ten era. Next on Locked On UCLA. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 120 million plus parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for, because with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. With eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP to bring home huge wins. Keep a ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, cruising on here in Locked On UCLA. Zach with you guys. We're talking the physicality of the Big Ten, right? ESPN just put up an article about how different programs doing different things. The Pac-12, in this day and age, right? Remember the Pac-12, a lot of spread, a lot of big-time quarterbacks. The age of the quarterback, a lot of them coming from the Big Ten. And from university to university, the teams that did really well in the Pac-12, in the top half of the standings, large in part had a bigger name quarterback that performed better than the others. And where UCLA struggled last year was consistency at quarterback. But now you're going to the Big Ten, where you had Michigan, who on the road at Penn State ran it 32 times down their throat and literally just killed the game. With no clock stoppages after first downs until the final 2 minutes of the half, you can really chew up a clock like teams can do in the NFL with a 7-8 minute drive. Not that college teams couldn't, but it was a lot of scoring, a lot of first downs, teams going quick. The Big Ten, which has turned into a somewhat up-tempo type team, and we'll see what the Chip Kelly change has to do for State and what Sharon Moore is going to do at Michigan. And Oregon still loves to go quick. USC has been interesting. They're going through a quarterback change. Washington's changing from their Michael Penix Jr. days where they could throw the ball all over the place. But the teams that succeeded were physically successful up front. Washington could protect the quarterback despite throwing every play. Oregon could run it down the opposition's throat because they were so physical up front and dominate the line of scrimmage. UCLA was extremely successful in 23 because the D-line was so dominant, and not successful offensively because they couldn't protect any of their quarterbacks. Dante, Ethan Garbers, whoever came in, everybody got banged up. Literally everybody was getting banged up because they could not protect the quarterback. They're giving free runs. And the short yardage situations against teams where you're playing in the Pac-12, those D-lines aren't as beefy. They didn't play Oregon last year. They didn't play Washington, who's got some D-line talent. They just could not get those short yardage situations against a poor man's Arizona State when Chip Kelly's job should have been on the line. And yes, they ran all over USC, but that was the one team whose offensive line, defensive line was so much worse than UCLA. That's why UCLA literally trounced them in the Coliseum, despite having the number one overall pick at quarterback and some talent elsewhere. UCLA literally kicked USC's behind and just said, get out of here, and we're ringing the bell in UCLA blue. Now, to move on to the Big Ten, you've seen a shift in recruiting. You've seen UCLA go after bigger offensive linemen. They needed them. You got to be able to run the ball, right? After a run-first semi-philosophy with Chip Kelly, you don't think Bieniemy's pride and joy is going to be running the football too? While we see a little more complicated passing schematics for Garbers to get guys open, that's going to require more, QB1 opportunities for Garbers than it did to throw it to the open man for last few quarterbacks that Chip Kelly had in his tenure at UCLA. It's going to be up to the physicality. And I think UCLA, they bring back players, they bring back talent, they brought in veterans, but it's the physical fronts that will set the tone. If you can't stop the run, teams aren't going to stop running on you. All right? And as much as Iowa couldn't do anything offensively, you know that if all they have to do is run the football, regardless of how changed the offense is, they can run the football, get a couple of points, and they will beat UCLA to Friday night at the Rose Bowl. That's how it's been the last few years with their defense. Now, I do think UCLA has attempted to do what they needed to do in the portal to address those concerns. I wonder how much damage Chip Kelly has done by not addressing those concerns immediately. And UCLA's done a lot of recruiting in the portal to try and address that now. And in the class of 25, Deshaun Foster was nearing a top 25, top 30 class. Now everybody goes and gets a 5-star, and those classes will change once the transfer portal goes. And now that scholarships are literally shooting to the moon, you can go get as good of a class as you want if you're UCLA, as good of a class as you want while adding portal talent. So that is where UCLA could struggle in their first year as a Big Ten member. Even Jay Tawia was mentioning, hey, I'm slimming down. Some guys are getting bigger, right? Think about crosstown, they need to get bigger. They're so small in the D-line, so weak on the O-line. All right? And UCLA feasted on that in that game last season with Latu and the Murphy twins and bringing back Tawia, which was a big return out of the portal to keep him from going to Texas. Now, I'm not sure if UCLA can do that this year. I think they can do just enough, and I hope the coaching staff can have those weaknesses hidden and the talent and the return and just the excitement of a new voice, fresh faces, and a new era can lead them to more victories than not this year in the Big Ten, because it's kind of unknown with what UCLA is going to get and what they're going to bring. Is it a 7-win season? Is it a 2-10 team, a 3-9 team? Any of those things are in play, other than falling short of a college football playoff, which would be one of the most shocking things possible in this year, even though it's expanded to 12 teams. It would be a new crazy thing. Now, when UCLA goes to Penn State, do they have the physicality to match up? I don't think Penn State is more skilled at quarterback when they go to Beaver Stadium, but it's the mental moxie. It's the physicality, the in-your-face type football that the Pac-12 would spread around, and UCLA could outmuscle teams because they're a little stronger, like than a Washington State, who had Cam Ward, who could go surprise the Wisconsins of the world. But by the time week 6 rolled around, you came to UCLA last year, those were more physical. Or when UCLA had a little more talent than Utah because they were so hurt with no Cam Rising in 23, they couldn't outmuscle the Utes. So that is the wonder, right? I'm not sure if UCLA is going to get blown out of the water. It's when those physical fronts meet. Can UCLA meet its match, make enough plays to surprise opponents and stay ahead just enough? The examples are the Utah game when they weren't physical enough. When Oregon State was just a little bit more physical to win that game in Corvallis, although a lot of those had to deal with pick sixes from your true freshman quarterback, then now you have a longtime veteran player who's been around as QB1. You've got veteran running backs. You've got a returning offensive line that has shifted its center, that's got guys who are 6'5", 6'6", transfer guys that are that size, and I think should be able to hold its own on the O-line. Time will tell, but the D-line is where can they get pressure on the edges, and is there enough depth on the interior defensive line beyond just Jay Tui and everybody else to get into the quarterback and can handle just a team literally running it 30 times straight right at you? Because the Big Ten will do that. That is the question of the season. The physicality and the environments facing UCLA. And UCLA's got a crystal ball in the class of 25, another offensive lineman. I'll talk to you about that next. And they've given out the honored 36 number, which is a newer UCLA tradition. We'll talk about that to end the Locked On UCLA podcast. All right, the Olympics are coming into week 2. Everything's sporting. It's going to come to an end, and it's just camp season, right? Training camp, fall camp. And we won't really have a lot of things other than just Major League Baseball. But I never want them to stop because the playoffs are winding down. We get fewer sports. They're not sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel can let the sports keep going whenever I want. All you have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. All summer long, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right, something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, cruising on here into the final segment of the Locked On UCLA podcast. Let's talk about some crystal balls and some news and notes from fall camp for UCLA. UCLA, a couple weeks ago, was able to about a week ago, get a crystal ball. Greg Biggins, 24/7 Sports expert, put in a crystal ball for UCLA to get a 6'5", three-star offensive lineman out of Orange, California, Nehemiah Johnson, right? So you can see, coming off that last segment, with the physicality UCLA needs, they're going after those bigger offensive linemen, not the quick, smaller ones, right? Like you get the 6'3" guy. You need beefy, big-time offensive linemen. All the West Coast schools are going after it. Washington did it to perfection to make it to a national championship game appearance against Michigan. But the physicality is where things are huge, right? That's why Alabama never had to have a huge quarterback, because all they do is run the ball and be so much more physical than the opposition under Nick Saban. It was being more physical for Georgia. It was Alabama. It was Washington protecting the quarterback. Oregon's physicality. Michigan's physicality. At times, Ohio State's physicality. Now, Nehemiah Johnson, he's not going to all change that at once, but he is a guy that just represents and continues to represent the shift and continued add-ons for UCLA. They try to do their best in the 24 recruiting class, but Chip Kelly didn't care. Now, in 25, Deshaun Foster, with a completely revamped approach, has changed the game for UCLA to go get guys interested in the Bruins, interested in Westwood, interested in what the Foss era is: discipline, respect, enthusiasm. Bringing his pillars to UCLA football, knowing that UCLA, it's in LA, and the fact that, hey, the glitz and the glamour, the opportunity is there. Let's bring the big boys on over to UCLA. So Johnson is crystal ball, three-star prospect, could be someone who grows into a four-star, as all these guys can in their final years with development, strength training, and just a really good senior year. Because as much as the stars matter, there's still the next level of college weight training. So the development factor even happens after they've committed. It's to the work ethic of the player, whoever it is, to grow into it. So the Bruins have a crystal ball, could add on to their class of 25. With the additional scholarships, why not get as many offensive linemen, defensive linemen as possible? Now, everybody's going to get mad when they don't play, but if you're on scholarship, might as well start on scholarship and see how that develops, right? And turns into an opportunity, work ethic, and ability. Now, with UCLA, the news and notes coming out to fall camp was the 36. Remember, that was the late Nick Pasquale, who back in 2013 passed away. Chip Kelly and UCLA decided to start the tradition of handing out the 36 that represented a hardworking walk-on scout player who could turn into someone to get a scholarship. It had been Alex Johnson, and Johnson was fantastic at wearing the number 36. Had some big-time plays, some interceptions last year as a DB for UCLA. Fantastic. And now it's Joshua Swift, who comes in. That was one of the key things that Deshaun Foster noted early, right? It is such a position and number of importance. Despite all traditions, they got to start somewhere. Whether it's Big Ten traditions or, remembering the hard workers of the past and what they left behind with their legacy, UCLA is doing that with the tradition of the 36, which I wonder what will look like when it comes to the scholarship era and the lack of walk-ons. But it's still one of those things for you work hard, effort, play. This is what you want your program to represent. Swift is what Deshaun Foster believes in as a representation for that number. And congratulations, because it is something well-earned now in the UCLA football lore in recent history. And it's just a symbol. Hey, work hard, continue, do the right things, do it the right way. And just representation for Deshaun Foster of his three pillars. And whoever coaches at UCLA to think, give the 36. And I think that's also what helps with Deshaun Foster's continuity. He didn't have a lot of players leave in the portal. He stays there. He knows exactly what's been going on recently. And that is how the tradition can continue, with Foster being not exactly an in-house hire, but continuing the honoring of players in the past, the changes and things that have happened. He knows and can see that and see forward, which we hope can happen for the UCLA program as a whole. All right, that's going to wrap up Locked On UCLA, officially a Big Ten program. The day is upon us for UCLA fans. It's different. It's weird. They're in the Big Ten map, and you see a lot of them are a lot further away than we'd like them to be for conference opponents. But here we are. Football, the revenue driver. Basketball, the driver for UCLA. Let's change that, make them just kick all the Big Ten teams' butts. From the West Coast to the Midwest to the East Coast. So get your hands up, Bruins fans. 8-clap time, baby. Teach them Midwesterners how this 8-clap goes. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.